all the latest and exclusive videos related to 90-Day Fiancé. If you love drama, real love stories, shocking twists, and emotional moments, then you are in the... She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She didn't even pack in front of the cameras. Jenny was just gone. The crew waited outside her apartment for 6 hours, thinking she'd come back to film her final confessional. But she never did. TLC scrambled trying to figure out how to explain her absence to the audience without showing what really happened. And what happened started way before she vanished. It started quietly in a way that doesn't register until it's too late. Sumit had been disappearing for weeks. Not all day, just for a few hours. Every other afternoon, his phone stayed behind. He'd mumble something about family errands or business with his uncle. Jenny didn't question it at first. That was the problem. This wasn't the first time she convinced herself to trust him, but her stomach started tightening every time the door closed behind him. What snapped her out of it wasn't a text or a voicemail. It was a bill. She'd opened her wallet to find a receipt tucked inside, one she never remembered seeing. Not a restaurant, not groceries, a translation service printed in Hindi. Jenny didn't speak or read it, but she knew that logo. It was the same service she and Sumit used when she first came to India and had documents translated for her visa. Except this time, she hadn't asked for anything to be translated. The receipt was 2 weeks old. That meant Sumit had used her card again without telling her. She sat there for 20 minutes staring at it. The amount wasn't huge, but that wasn't the point. The point was, he lied again and didn't even bother to hide it. He used the same service they'd both been to. As if she wouldn't notice, or maybe as if she wouldn't care. That's when something shifted. She didn't confront him right away. She waited. She started watching patterns. The times he left, the excuses, the gaps, the fact that he always changed the subject whenever she brought up their future in the US. He used to say he'd go anywhere with her. Now, he just said things were complicated. The next day, she found 2 more receipts in the side pocket of their shared desk drawer. Both were translations. One was tied to property. The other was marked as family document verification. This time, Jenny didn't wait. She grabbed her purse, walked out, and went straight to the same office in Old Delhi. The same place she'd once held. Sumit's hand and smiled through paperwork she barely understood. They remembered her. The woman behind Tage's counter looked nervous when Jenny asked about the receipts. She disappeared into the back for several minutes before returning with the files, speak to someone in English. A young man came out, said his name was Rahul. He opened the first file, read it quietly, then looked up. This says, marriage registration verification, he said slowly. It's a check of a legal document. This is the copy your partner requested. Jenny froze. He asked to confirm if it's still valid. Andis. She didn't understand at first. What do you mean still valid? It means the marriage is still on record in the system. Not annulled. Jenny didn't say a word. She took the paper and walked out. That was the last time production saw her on a scheduled filming day. She didn't tell the crew where she was going. But Sumit knew she knew. And that's when he stopped coming home. It started with a folder, one of those overstead ones, nearly bursting with printouts, notepads, and photocopies she kept from every visa application, rental agreement, and bureaucratic mess she ever touched in India. Jenny had always been the one keeping records. Sumit was careless, forgetful. He treated paperwork like clutter. She treated it like proof. After the translator's confirmation about a still active marriage, Jenny didn't scream or throw things. She sat in silence for over an hour at the cafe across the street. When she got home, she opened the drawer and pulled out every document they'd collected since she moved. Birth certificates, lease agreements, power of attorney paperwork, everything she'd once signed in good faith, assuming it was to help them build something. But one file stood out. A thick envelope, sealed with a red thread and a single wax stamp. Sumit had told her it was old family paperwork related to the house. She never touched it. She figured it was one of those things lost in translation. And honestly, back then she didn't care. She was trying to be accepted by his family, not investigate them. This time she opened it. Inside were 3 pages, all in Hindi. Government seal in the corner. A few bolded names. One was his, the other wasn't hers. She didn't jump to conclusions. She couldn't. She didn't understand the language. And by now, she didn't trust her own assumptions. She scanned the documents and sent them to the same translator from before. Rahul, she told him to be direct. No soft language, no guessing. He emailed her back within the hour. Do you want me to often over the phone? Lon you explain over the phone? Jenny didn't hesitate. No, just tell me now. Okay. The first document is a property title transfer. Looks like your partner moved part ownership to someone else last year. Jenny blinked. To who? Rahul paused. She's listed as a beneficiary spouse. Her name is Karishma. Jenny had never heard that name in her life. She felt her ears ringing. Her chest went hollow. For a second, she thought she might have misheard. She asked him to spell it. He did. Are you sure? She asked. Positive. This is a legal transfer. She's recognized as next of kin. Jenny thanked him and hung up. Then, she Googled the name. One profile popped up on Facebook private account, but the profile picture was visible. And in it, she didn't cry, she didn't yell, she didn't pack in front of the cameras. Jenny was just gone. The production crew waited outside her apartment for 6 hours, thinking she would eventually come back to film her final confessional, but she never did. TLC scrambled, trying to figure out how to explain her absence without revealing the truth. What happened started long before she vanished. It began quietly, almost imperceptibly, the kind of warning signs you ignore until it's too late. Sumit had been disappearing for weeks. Not all day, just a few hours here and there. Every other afternoon, his phone stayed behind. He'd mumble something about family errands or business with his uncle. Jenny didn't question it at first, and that was the problem. This wasn't the first time she had convinced herself to trust him. But the knot in her stomach grew tighter every time the door closed behind him. What snapped her out of the haze of trust wasn't a text, a voicemail, or a confrontation. It was a bill. She opened her wallet and found a receipt she didn't remember seeing before. It wasn't from a restaurant or groceries. It was from a translation service, printed in Hindi. Jenny couldn't read it, but the logo was familiar. It was the same service she and Sumit had used when she first came to India, the same place that translated her visa documents. Except this time, she hadn't requested anything. The receipt was 2 weeks old. Sumit had used her card without telling her. Jenny sat staring at it for 20 minutes. The amount wasn't significant. The betrayal was. The audacity, the deception. It was all too familiar yet felt like a punch in the gut. The pattern was clear. Lee. First time, Jenny didn't turn away. She didn't confront him immediately. Instead, she started watching. She noted the times he left, the excuses he gave, the sudden gaps in his schedule, and the way he always changed the subject whenever she tried to discuss their future in the US. Where once he promised he would go anywhere with her, now he simply said things were complicated. The next day, she found 2 more receipts hidden in a side pocket of their shared desk drawer. Both were translations, one tied to property, the other marked as family document verification. Jenny didn't wait this time. She grabbed her purse and headed straight to the same office in Old Delhi where she had once nervously held Sumit's hand through paperwork she barely understood. They remembered her. The woman behind the counter looked tense when Jenny asked about the receipts and disappeared into the back for several minutes before returning with the files. A young man came out to speak to her in English, introducing himself as Rahul. He opened the first file quietly, scanned the contents, then looked up. This says, marriage registration verification, he said slowly. It is a check of a legal document, a copy your partner requested. Jenny froze. Is it still valid? He asked. She nodded silently, still trying to process. The marriage was still on record. It had not been annulled. Jenny didn't say a word. She took the paper and walked out, calm on the surface but her mind racing. That was the last scheduled filming day she appeared for. She didn't tell the crew where she was going. Sumit knew she knew, and that's when he stopped coming home. It started with a folder, one of those oversized ones stuffed with printouts, notepads, photocopies. Everything Jenny had kept from visa applications, rental agreements, and bureaucratic tangles. Jenny was always meticulous. Sumit was careless, treating papers as clutter. She treated them as evidence. After the translator confirmed the marriage was still legally active, Jenny didn't scream. She didn't throw things. She sat in silence across the street for over an hour. When she returned, she opened the drawer, pulling out every document they had accumulated since she moved. Birth certificates, lease agreements, power of attorney papers. Everything she had once signed believing it was for building a life together. One file stood out. A thick envelope sealed with a red thread and wax stamp. Sumit had told her it was old family paperwork related to the house. She had never touched it, thinking it irrelevant. But this time, curiosity and caution overtook her. Inside were 3 pages in Hindi, government seals, a few bolded names. One of them Sumit's, another unfamiliar. Jenny didn't jump to conclusions. She didn't understand the language. By now, she didn't trust her assumptions. She scanned the documents and sent them to Rahul, the translator. She instructed him, "Be direct, no soft language, no guessing." Rahul emailed her back within the hour. "Do you want me to explain over the phone?" he asked. "No, just tell me now," Jenny responded firmly. Rahul explained. The first document was a property title transfer. Part ownership had been moved to someone else the previous year. Jenny's heart sank. "To who?" she asked. "She's listed as a beneficiary spouse. Her name is Karishma." Jenny had never heard the name. Her chest hollowed. She asked him to spell it. It was confirmed. It was legal. She Googled the name. One private Facebook profile appeared, but the photo revealed everything she feared. A woman living her life, connected to Sumit, and completely unknown to Jenny until now. Jenny's world tilted in that instant. Karishma, someone she had never known existed, was legally recognized as Sumit's spouse on important property documents. Every instinct in Jenny screamed betrayal, but she remained calm outwardly. She folded the documents carefully and sat at her kitchen table, trying to piece together a timeline. Her eyes moved across the pile of receipts, legal papers, and translation notes. Everything was evidence now. Each transaction, each excuse Sumit had given over the months suddenly fit into a pattern she had been too trusting to see before. She remembered the small gaps in his daily routine. The afternoons he said he was at business meetings, the long calls with untraceable numbers, the mysterious trips to offices she didn't know about. At first, she had brushed them off, telling herself it was normal, it was work, it was family errands. But this revelation, was proof that she had been living in a carefully constructed illusion. She had believed in Sumit's words, but not in his actions. The documents confirmed that while Jenny was thinking about a future together in the US, Sumit had quietly been building a life elsewhere. A life that included another woman legally recognized as his wife. Jenny didn't call him. She didn't confront him. Instead, she started compiling everything. Every translation receipt, every financial document, every legal paper, all placed meticulously in folders. She created timelines, side-by-side comparisons, and detailed notes. She needed clarity before taking any action. The realization was heavy. Sumit had not just lied about small things, he had constructed an alternate reality. And in this reality, Jenny was a stranger to the truth of his life. The next day, she decided to investigate further. Using Rahul, the translator, she requested complete clarity on every document Sumit had processed over the last 2 years. Each file revealed layers of deception. There were property transfers, verification of marriage documents, and documents related to potential business dealings with Karishma's family. Jenny stared at the screen, trying to understand the scope of what she had uncovered. Every line she read confirmed the same painful truth. Sumit had been living a double life. Her next step was strategic. Jenny knew she couldn't act impulsively. She had to gather indisputable evidence, not just for herself but for anyone who would later question her story. Each day, she meticulously documented phone records, bank statements, and translation receipts. She kept every interaction with Rahul, noting timestamps and official confirmations. This was no longer just a personal betrayal. It was a complex legal and emotional labyrinth that required precision. Jenny's emotions oscillated between shock, anger, and resolve. She felt the weight of isolation. The crew, the cameras, the friends, everyone had assumed she was just another reality star experiencing a minor conflict. But this was different. This was life-altering. Sumit's deception wasn't just personal. It was legally binding and emotionally calculated. She realized the importance of patience. Confrontation now could risk destruction of evidence, or worse, the erasure of the story before it could be told. In the weeks that followed, Jenny began monitoring Sumit's patterns more closely. Every trip he claimed to make, every call he insisted was necessary, every excuse he gave, it was now part of a broader map of deception she was constructing. She found that certain transactions matched the timing of the receipts she had first discovered. The same translation office, the same legal processing, the same chain of signatures. The attention to detail in his deception was alarming. She realized this was not a series of minor mistakes but a meticulously executed plan to maintain control over two lives at once. Jenny also discovered that Sumit had begun creating digital footprints to obfuscate the truth. Emails were short periods, and social media activity selectively manipulated to maintain appearances. This was no accident. It was intentional. And the depth of it was what made Jenny's next decisions crucial. She could not let the complexity of the deception overwhelm her. She had to be systematic. One morning, Jenny received another set of documents from Rahul. These were financial records linked to Karishma, bank transfers, joint property accounts, and investment papers. Each document confirmed that Sumit had been financially entangled with Karishma, while maintaining an entirely separate life with Jenny. The realization hit hard. Sumit had planned this over months, if not years. Jenny's shock was immense, but alongside it came clarity. She knew she had to act decisively, carefully, and without emotional interference. This was not just about heartbreak. It was about exposing a calculated web of deceit. Jenny prepared a comprehensive binder, labeling each section: legal, financial, communication, property, translations, and observations. Each section contained every piece of evidence in chronological order. The binder became her anchor, a tangible record of the life she thought she knew and the life that Sumit had secretly orchestrated. She referred to it constantly, cross-checking every detail, making sure there were no loose ends. Precision was her shield. Meanwhile, Jenny's interactions with Rahul grew more detailed. She requested direct explanations for ambiguous legal terms, verification of translations, and clarification of any documents with multiple interpretations. Rahul's responses were concise, factual, and devoid of speculation. This methodical approach ensured that Jenny's evidence was airtight. No assumptions, no conjecture, only confirmed facts. Jenny then revisited every previous translation receipt, examining the dates, services used, and documents processed. She mapped these against Sumit's known locations and activities, creating a detailed timeline. The pattern was undeniable. Sumit had systematically hidden significant aspects of his life from her. Each new receipt and document added another layer of confirmation to what she had already suspected. Her trust had been exploited in a calculated manner. In the weeks that followed, Jenny made a plan to confront the situation strategically. She would not confront Sumit impulsively. She needed to ensure her personal safety, her legal standing, and the integrity of the evidence. She realized that exposing the truth would require more than just confrontation. It would require careful public narrative management, precise legal consultation, and unwavering documentation. Jenny also began to understand the psychological tactics Sumit had employed. Gaslighting, manipulation, and selective honesty had kept her doubting her own instincts. By consistently observing his patterns, cross-checking documents, and verifying facts through Rahul, she reclaimed her sense of certainty. For the first time, she could act with authority rather than fear. Her next step was to compile the narrative in a format suitable for both legal and public scrutiny. Jenny began drafting a detailed timeline that explained the sequence of events without inserting speculation. Each document was cited, each receipt dated, and each discrepancy highlighted. She knew that clarity was essential, not only for her personal closure but for anyone who would later hear her story. Jenny's research also uncovered subtle connections between Sumit and Karishma's family. Legal filings, property registrations, and financial transactions indicated that the relationship was formalized in multiple ways. Jenny documented everything meticulously, ensuring that no detail was left unexamined. She realized that Sumit's deceit was far more elaborate than she had initially imagined, encompassing financial, legal, and emotional layers simultaneously. Jenny's resolve grew stronger with each passing day. She now understood that this wasn't merely about betrayal. It was about deception, manipulation, and a life built on lies. With her binder of evidence, every document meticulously organized, she was prepared to confront the truth on her own terms. She didn't need witnesses yet, because the facts spoke for themselves. Every transaction, every translation receipt, every legal paper confirmed what her instincts had known all along. Sumit had been living a double life, one in which she had been nothing more than a convenient partner, carefully kept in the dark. Jenny began her investigation into Karishma. Using the details from the property title transfer and other legal filings, she pieced together Karishma's profile. There were subtle hints online, a private Facebook account, faint social media activity, occasional posts about her own life. It was enough for Jenny to establish that Karishma was indeed the woman listed as Sumit's spouse. The revelation was surreal. An unknown person legally recognized as his wife, while Jenny had been planning a future together in the US. The emotional weight of this discovery could have shattered her, but Jenny stayed calm. Instead of reacting impulsively, she focused on the next steps. Verifying every claim, collecting incontrovertible evidence, and preparing a narrative that would leave no room for doubt. Every interaction with Rahul now became more critical. Jenny requested cross-referencing of dates, validation of names, and verification of all official stamps. She ensured that every piece of evidence could withstand scrutiny in a legal or public setting. Jenny's next move was strategic confrontation. She did not intend to yell, argue, or beg. She had learned from experience that Sumit thrived on emotional manipulation. She needed facts, not theatrics. With her binder and a detailed timeline, Jenny arranged a private meeting with a trusted legal advisor in Delhi. The advisor was thorough, reviewing each document, cross-referencing every transaction, and confirming the validity of the property and marriage records. Every piece of evidence was confirmed as legitimate. There was no ambiguity, no room for dispute. Sumit's deceit was deliberate and well documented. With the legal foundation established, Jenny planned how to reveal the truth publicly. Her YouTube audience, the fans of her story, and even the TLC production team needed a complete and factual account. She knew that this revelation would be explosive. The story wasn't just about infidelity. It was about calculated lies, manipulation, and the existence of a parallel life. She decided to document everything in a format that was clear, engaging, and backed by evidence. Jenny began filming her narrative. She recounted every detail with precision, showing receipts, translation confirmations, and legal documents. She avoided conjecture, focusing instead on verified facts. The audience could see the timeline: Sumit disappearing for hours, unexplained translations, receipts, property transfers, and the ultimate confirmation of Karishma as a legal spouse. Jenny's calm delivery, combined with irrefutable evidence, made the revelation more shocking. There were no dramatic tears or screaming fits, only clarity and undeniable proof. As the filming progressed, Jenny addressed the emotional manipulation she had endured. She described how Sumit had isolated her from questioning his actions, how small lies built into a web of control, and how trust had been exploited. The narrative was compelling because it blended emotional reality with factual evidence. Viewers could empathize with Jenny's pain while recognizing the meticulous unraveling of Sumit's duplicity. Meanwhile, Jenny continued to verify Karishma's existence. With help from Rahul, she traced additional property documents, bank account records, and legal filings. Each piece confirmed the same truth. Sumit had built a legally binding relationship with Karishma while maintaining a separate life with Jenny. This double life was not incidental. It was deliberate and long-term. Jenny now had enough evidence to confront Sumit directly, but she waited. She needed the confrontation to be undeniable, supported by documents that could not be refuted. The confrontation itself was structured. Jenny recorded her questions, presented the binder of evidence, and allowed Sumit no room to manipulate the narrative. Each document, timestamp, and translation receipt was laid out, creating a visual and factual account of his deception. Sumit could not deny the property transfers, the marriage verification, or the financial entanglements. Jenny's calm, evidence-based approach made the emotional and legal impact undeniable. Jenny then shared the final piece of the puzzle: the envelope sealed with red thread and wax stamp. Inside were the family documents that revealed Karishma's legal recognition. Jenny presented these alongside translation confirmations from Rahul. The moment was electric. Every detail, previously hidden, now exposed, creating a narrative that was impossible to ignore. The truth was complete, detailed, and verified. As she published the video, Jenny addressed her audience directly. She recounted the timeline, the early signs of deception, the unexplained absences, the translation receipts, the property transfers, and the ultimate revelation of Karishma. She stressed the importance of trusting one's instincts, verifying facts, and documenting everything. Her story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about awareness, preparedness, and resilience. The YouTube audience reacted immediately. Comments poured in, viewers expressing shock, empathy, and admiration for Jenny's methodical approach. Fans praised her calm, factual storytelling, noting how it contrasted with dramatic but unverified narratives common in reality TV. The combination of emotional clarity and evidence-based exposition made the story both gripping and credible. Meanwhile, the TLC production team faced a dilemma. Jenny's absence during filming had already raised questions. Now, with the public narrative and evidence fully documented, the network had to address the story responsibly. Jenny's methodical documentation ensured that any explanation or clarification would be backed by irrefutable proof. This was a story that could not be ignored or minimized. Jenny also prepared for potential legal ramifications. With all documents verified and timelines meticulously prepared, she had a clear case in the event of disputes over property, financial transactions, or emotional distress. Her careful approach demonstrated foresight and strategic thinking. Jenny had transformed from a victim of deception into a commanding figure capable of controlling the narrative and defending her interests. By the end of the filming, the story had shifted. What started as a personal betrayal had become a public revelation, a cautionary tale, and a meticulously documented exposé. Jenny's calm, evidence-driven storytelling made her narrative compelling, credible, and impossible to ignore. Sumit's manipulation, once hidden, was now fully revealed. The YouTube video, structured with documents, translations, timelines, and first-hand accounts, ensured that viewers could follow the story from beginning to end without gaps or ambiguity. Jenny's final message was clear: trust your instincts, document everything, and never ignore the signs. The video concluded with a visual presentation of the binder, highlighting key documents and timelines, leaving the audience with a complete understanding of the deception and the painstaking process of uncovering the truth. Her story resonated widely. Fans, viewers, and even other reality TV participants recognized the importance of vigilance, documentation, and strategic exposure. Jenny's calm, methodical, and factual approach transformed a deeply personal betrayal into a universally instructive narrative, providing both emotional catharsis and educational insight. After the explosive revelations, Jenny knew that the story didn't end with just exposing Sumit and Karishma. The next phase was the fallout: how she would navigate her life, public perception, and potential legal ramifications. The first step was understanding the psychological aftermath. Betrayal on this scale leaves emotional scars, but Jenny had learned to compartmentalize. She recorded every thought, every reaction, and every fact as it happened. The YouTube audience saw a woman transforming pain into clarity, shock into strategic action. Jenny revisited